Welcome, everybody. Welcome back to a brand new episode of the Motivate, Grind, Succeed podcast, the show that gives you 100% fluff-free, guaranteed, practical, and useful tips with every episode to get you going. No spam, no long intros, just pure information. If you're new to the show, welcome, and you're going to get a ton of value from this episode. If you're returning, welcome back. I love you all. I missed you all. Welcome back, guys. And a quick favor to anybody who is listening to us right now, new or returning, if at any point in time you get some value from this episode, please share it with just one person. That's all I ask. Just one person. Let's spread this show. Let's spread this good information. And with all that housekeeping out of the way, let's get right into this week's episode. As you can see, we have a guest on the show, Brendan from Master Talk. Let me give a little intro to Brendan here in case you all don't know. You all should know who this is, but in case you don't, I'll give you a little intro to him. After many years of doing presentation case competitions, which if you don't know what that is, think like professional sports, but for the fellow nerds like myself and everything of the group, at university, he developed a skill for helping others to communicate effectively. And through this, he founded Master Talk, through which he coaches ambitious executives and entrepreneurs to become top 1% communicators in their industry. He has a popular YouTube channel called Master Talk, and it has the goal of providing it doesn't get much better than free. Okay, guys, definitely check it out. Free access to communication tools that everyone can use in the world. And he had a quote that I'd have to ask you about while we're starting off. You said on your page when I was going to connect with you, you said, I believe that Elon Musk is a 7-year-old girl who can't afford a communication coach. So it's my duty to help her succeed with free resources. Brendan, welcome to the show, man. I love that quote. How are you doing?
Good, Rashawn. How are you, man? Thanks for having me on.
Man, I'm doing great, man. Before we get started into everything, right? Can you explain that quote at least just a little bit for us? Like what inspired you to make that quote? Because when I read it the first time, I was like, that is hilarious. I love that quote. What does that mean?
For sure, son. It's a bit more of a longer story, so hear me out for a few seconds here.
Mm-hmm.
So essentially, I was watching a TikTok the other day, and the TikTok was about Taylor Swift. And it was about her winning an award called Women of the Year, given by a music company called Billboard, and it was 2014.
Mm-hmm.
So she stands up on that stage, she looks at the group, and she says, your future Woman of the Year is 11 years old right now. Mm-hmm. She's sitting in a choir, she's learning how to sing, and we need to take care of her. And then she walks off the stage. And then it's 7 years later, and the TikTok kind of flips. And Billie Eilish becomes the youngest inductee in Billboard's history to win Woman of the Year at the age of 17. So she walks up on stage. She's got this big, bulky jacket. She's got her big glasses. She looks at the group and goes, what's up, everybody? It's so good to be here. I know I won this award. And then the last 10 seconds of her speech completely changed my life, Rashawn, in a super meaningful way. She looked at the crowd and said, yeah, when it was 2014, I watched Taylor Swift. She's so amazing, and Taylor's amazing. And I was 11 years old.
What?
And I was learning how to sing, and I was in choir, and the only thing I have left to say, Billboard, is you took care of me, so thank you so much. And she walks off the stage. And the reason that moved me so much, dude, is because I thought about the next Elon Musk when I heard that TikTok.
Mm-hmm.
When Elon was a 15-year-old kid, nobody gave a shit about him. When he was a kid in South Africa, nobody helped him with speaking. And I thought about the next Elon right now is alive. We don't know who she is or he is, and we don't know where they live. And I believe it's my duty to help that person master communication. So yeah, that's my North Star.
Absolutely. I love that background story, because then I was actually going to get into how I usually invite all the guests in to talk from the start about giving their background story. That was pretty good so far, unless you have more that you wanted to add to that background story, just so we can get a little bit of a better feel of who you are, unless that pretty much encompasses most of it. If that's the case, we could go ahead into the questions. But if you have any more you wanted to add to that, you can go on ahead.
Yeah, for sure, Sean. I mean, that's probably more chapter 25, but I'd say chapter 1 was, to your point, when I was in college, I went to business school and did these things called case competitions, what I call professional sports for nerds, right? Other guys my age were playing rugby or basketball, some other dangerous thing that you wouldn't see me playing. And I did presentations competitively. That's how I learned how to speak. But then as I got older, I started coaching a lot of the students on how to communicate ideas because I felt they didn't have a coach to just help them get really good at sharing their ideas with the world and winning competitions. And that's what sparked the idea for the YouTube channel. But back then, it wasn't so sophisticated. Like I think the next Elon is a 7-year-old girl. I was just a dude in my mom's basement making videos. I never thought it would amount to anything, but here we are.
Absolutely. Fantastic. I mean, hey, I'm just a dude in the basement as well. So, I mean, look, we got that in common already, but we're both working hard making stuff happen, right? That's all that matters.
Sure.
All righty. So hopping into the questions and just some guiding questions that we have. So first of all, the first question I have for you is that public speaking, right? Just generally speaking, it is one of people's biggest fears, right? Why is it that people struggle with public speaking so much? And as a sub question to that, is it the actual act of public speaking that is causing the fear, or is it something deeper than that?
Absolutely, Rashawn. So there's actually a simple answer to this question I've thought years about, and I think this is the best explanation. Let's think about it for a second. Where do we learn how to speak, Rashawn? The answer is school. High school, elementary school, that's where we learn how to present. That's where we give our first presentations.
Mm-hmm.
But we got a problem, Rashawn. Is all of those presentations have 3 things in common. Number 1 is that they're all mandatory. We don't wake up one morning and say, hey, Rashawn, you want to get breakfast and present all day? Nobody says that.
Mm-mm.
So that's problem number 1. Problem number 2 is they're all different. So it's never, hey, what are you passionate about, Brendan? What are you passionate about, Rashawn? You like podcasting? You like motivation? You like success? Yeah, that's not how it works. You got to talk about Shakespearean poetry and you got to live with it.
I hated that.
And then after, there you go, right?
That was the pain.
And then you got to talk. There you go. And then you got to talk about the Renaissance.
Oh my God, please don't.
And then after that, you got to talk about the history of Missouri. And you're like, do I even live in Missouri? Like, why do I have to? And this is your life. And you think I'm done. I'm not even done. Number 3, the worst of all of it, Rashawn. 12, 13, 14-year-old kids giving presentations. Every presentation they deliver is tied to a bloody punishment. What in the world is going on here? So every time you mess up, you don't get a pat on the back. You get a slap in the face and 20% of your mark goes to 0. So what's the conclusion? The conclusion is we are learned, right? We are led to believe that communication is a chore and nobody wants to get better at doing the dishes. And that's my answer to the question.
Ah, okay. That's a very, very, very interesting answer to the question, because when you first said that everybody learns to speak in school, at first I thought you were going to say something like, you learn at home where you start learning how to first formulate words, but taking it into the aspect that you did rather, and saying that that's how we learn in school. I know that's definitely where I did a lot of the speaking. And I told you before we started the recording here that growing up, I was definitely put onto a lot of stages and podiums and everything. And I gave speeches before I even had a memory. So, I mean, I was able to recite those things well and everything, but I mean, I don't remember any of it. And then the only time that I do remember actually doing those things, or those speeches rather, is, like you said, when I'm giving a presentation in front of the class. And if I don't do well, then that's just a box right there on the grading rubric saying, okay, presentation 3 out of 10 or something. And then you're losing marks just because of that. So that's what I think. I agree with that too. Just having that associated with it. I almost think about it off the top of my head. I almost think about almost like what was it called? I think it was a Pavlov's dog. I think it was, where pretty much you'd ring the bell and then the dog would associate that with food after a while. It's kind of like that kind of a relationship I'm thinking about now, where it's like you associate the public speaking with, if you don't do well at it, you're going to get some kind of punishment. So that's a very interesting way of putting it. So thank you for the answer to that question. It definitely gave me some insight.
Absolutely.
So the next one that I have for you is for anybody who's more introverted, right? Because, you got the extroverts, you got the introverts, and everybody in between. People who are more introverted are probably going to be listening to this episode, whether it be when it releases or whether it be 2 years from now, 5 years from now, a decade. I don't know when you're listening to this, but for anyone who is more introverted, Brendan, what advice can you give to them on public speaking, and how can they be able to get more comfortable with it?
Absolutely, Rashawn. So I have introvert-specific feedback, but one thing I want to shine a light on is a follow-up to your last question around fear, which ties into your question around introversion, which is, what is the cure? What's the medicine that we got to take to actually get rid of the fear? and this will definitely help our introverts. And the answer to that question is dream. I know that sounds really weird, but hear me out a little bit, Rashad.
Okay.
We dream about expensive vacations. We dream about the things we want to buy. We dream about the dinners we want to go on. When was the last time we dreamed about a world in which we're a better communicator in it? And a lot of us don't dream at all through communication or never even thought of the idea. That's why the question I always like to begin with is, how would your life change if you were an exceptional communicator? Because it affects every area of your life. It's not just about giving a presentation. It's the way that you talk to your family. It's the way that you order food at a restaurant. It's the way that you meet strangers when you travel. It's every moment of your life. And when you realize communication is about leading a more fulfilling life, that's when you start to focus on getting very excited about communication instead of being like, oh my God, this is like a chore and I have to do it. Right? Which brings me into the point around introversion. So now that our introverts are dreaming a little bit more about their communication, here's what I always like to say, man. There's 3 things that introverts are actually exponentially better at than extroverts that they just don't know. So let's just cover that. Number 1 is listening. Because they speak less on average, they listen more. Very easy for them to adapt their message to the people around them. That's why they're very good listeners. Whereas me, I'm an extrovert. So I was terrible at listening. I still need work. Right? So that's 1. Number 2 is they're much better at pausing. Right? So introverts, because they're more comfortable with silence because they speak less. So it's easier for them to pause whenever they're in a presentation. It's the most important skill in communication. Extroverts? When we're at a bar, we're at a party, and there's a space, you want to fill it up. So, Rashad, what's your favorite color? You always want to fill up the space. And then the last piece, now I'll throw it back to you, is accessibility. So what does accessibility mean? Introverts are actually a lot more accessible as communicators than extroverts, Rashad. Example, Gary Vaynerchuk. I'm a big fan of the guy. I have a lot of respect for him. But you either like the guy or you don't.
This is facts.
That's the type of speaker, right? This is facts, right?
I personally, I'm with you. I love the guy. I love Gary V. I love the way he speaks. He's just front with it and lets you know exactly how it is, which I prefer. I don't like people who beat around the bush all the time. I'm like, tell me what I need to know. Tell me what I'm doing wrong, and let's get on with it, right? So I appreciate that.
Absolutely. Yeah, same. And that's all respect. Like, we both have that shared mutual respect for him. But not everybody likes him. So when you're more extroverted, you're more aggressive in your delivery, there's a certain percentage of people who go, this person's not for me. And then you have the introverts. Nobody has uttered the following words, Rashawn. I hate Brene Brown. If you say that, the FBI and the CIA and the SWAT team are going to come to your house and arrest you and all your family. That's how taboo it is. You can't say that. Obviously, I'm a big fan of Brene Brown's work. But the reason I say that is because introverts just don't get as much hate and they're more accessible to people. So understand your strengths and triple down on them.
Okay, interesting. I know, because I know when I was thinking about some of these questions, I know on that scale of introvert to extrovert, I can play both roles, but I naturally gravitate more towards the introverted role. I kind of like to, if I need to talk, if I need to do speeches, like, I mean, even me doing this podcast here, like, you can hear it comes across as and some people have told me, like, yo, Rajat, you sound more extroverted, but in real life, you were just like, you're quiet, you're in the background, people don't really see you. I'm like, yeah, because I can play both roles. Whatever I need to be able to play, I can play. But if I was left to my own devices, I'm just like, look, I'm definitely more on the introverted side. So, for all the introverts out there, this question is also for me just as much as it is for you. So thank you, Brendan, for that. Appreciate it. It definitely helps me to feel like, oh man, I'm introverted, but I don't quite know. Is there anything I can improve? Because like I said, I'm a believer that no matter how good you are at something, there's always room for improvement, right? So that was part of the backing behind the question. We might think we're good at public speaking or we're passable, or anything like that. There's always room for improvement, right? And so, so I want to pivot a little bit now with the next question to the current work environment that we all have today, right? I mean, even with my day job, right? I'm in the office 2 days a week, work from home 3 days a week. So we're in that, and some people are fully remote. Some people are still in the office fully. But we're just going to talk about people who are kind of more, who have the ability to work more remote, right? Sometimes we're just not going to be in front of large groups of people, right? Sometimes we're not going to be in front of crowds or audiences. We're not going to have the Gary V audiences of the world where we're just yelling at them to do stuff and buy and flip stuff on eBay. We're not going to be able to do stuff like that. So what tips do you have for us that we can better present to people online? Because for me personally, I feel like it's a little bit easier to present online because you don't have, in terms of, let me preface it with this. It's easier to present online in terms of not having a bunch of people looking at you because, most people probably have their cameras off or something, or you can just have it on another monitor and just not look. Or at the same time, I think personally, just the way that when I talk to people, I think it also has the negative side of not being able to see people's reactions sometimes live. And then you're able to judge how you're delivering based on that. So with all that preface out the way, my main question is what tips do you have for us to help present better online?
Yeah, absolutely, Rashawn. Great question. So I would say there's three main differences between online and offline, aka in person. So let's cover them. Number one is eye contact. So when you're in an online setting, you always want to keep your eyes on the prize, which is one area, which is the camera lens. Whether you're speaking to 1 or 10,000 people, you just want to always look there. And I haven't really done a good job with it because I always like looking at your face and then my face and then back to the
camera. But my camera's here and your face is up there. So it's like I'm trying to do it here. I know YouTubers are really good at that. I know, like I said, I've seen your videos a couple. I didn't mean to cut you off, but just real quick. I know that I watched a couple of your videos before you came on the show, and I was like, man, this dude is laser focused on the camera. I know me, I'd be focused on the screen, to the camera adjacent, over here, making sure I look good, make sure I'm looking at that. But no, it's always focused on the camera lens. And I'm like, you nailed that. So good on you for that. Those are really good to see.
Oh, thanks, man. And that's much easier with YouTube because you just got one. It's like an actual camera, right? Where you're just looking at whereas me, it's a laptop mic. So I'm not a mic, but laptop thing. So I got your face in over there. I got the camera. So it makes it harder. But yes, look at the camera. So you could do something like put a picture of your family next to the lens. And if you don't like your family too much, put a picture of your favorite food next to the camera lens. Or if you want a more sarcastic one, you could put an arrow that points to your lens and says, look here or else. So that's another one that's a bit more aggressive. So you just pick whatever you want. That's number one. Number two is energy. Let's face it, Rashawn. At the end of the day, it's a lot easier to show up with energy when you're in person. Mm-hmm. And the reason is because there's more pressure to deliver. Like any online meeting, you could be like, okay, well, I guess I don't have to really do laundry or shower. It's not like they're going to notice. Whereas in person, they're going to notice. They're going to know. So it's all about creating that pressure that creates more energy. And people, there's hugging, there's handshakes, you're talking to people. It's easier to bring that. So what's the solution? The solution is you can't beat it in person. So what do? Is you bring more energy in person and you transfer as much of that energy as possible online, which brings me to number three, accessibility. It's a lot easier to talk to your audience when you're in person, Rashawn. If you want feedback from them, you just have lunch for them. They're right in front of you. Online, it's much harder because there's a lot more friction on the Zoom call. So instead, what you want to do is you want to get on phone calls with people of your audience. And ideally, with people that are closest to you, you can have those people jump in on another Zoom call prior to the real presentation. And you can do a test pilot with them over Zoom.
Interesting. Very interesting. I don't think I've had, I'm trying to think. I don't think I've had any time where I've had to give a talk like that, outside of my day job. I do have a big one coming up in a couple months, though. I do have to give some presentations, and those are going to be in person. So a lot of these tips are definitely have to use that and just definitely try to bring that energy to people, because it's going to be, I'm not gonna lie, it's probably gonna be some kind of boring topics that people probably don't want to hear the most about. So it's up to the presenter usually to try to make it exciting. Like, come on, guys, let's go, let's learn about stuff. And you gotta bring that, exactly. Boy, you got that, there you go. You gotta bring that energy.
Give those keynotes on geometry, man. Let's go.
Yo, yes, sir. You already know. All righty. That kind of leads me into another question that I had for you as well. In that, one of the quotes that I like to live by a lot is that there's nothing to it but to do it, right? I was in a one-on-one with my boss the other day, and then she was asking me, hey, do you want to take on some more of this responsibility at work, or whenever you feel ready to be able to lead these meetings and do this and that, you can let me know. Is there anything that's holding you back from starting to do that? And I was like, not really, except me just not wanting to do it, but there's nothing to it but to do it. And so if we want to get better at public speaking, we need to get better by doing public speaking, right? It's the SAID principle. Have you heard of the SAID principle before? Okay. Well, the SAID principle it's an acronym. The word SAID. It stands for specific adaptations impose demands. Some people call it specific adaptations impose specific demands. You usually hear about it a lot more like the fitness space type of thing, where it's pretty much, it's a general concept of if you want to get good at something, do that thing. If you want to get good at push-ups, do push-ups. You want to get good at making omelets, you have to make omelets. So pretty much that leads to the question of, since we need to do public speaking to get better at public speaking, what exercises or drills do you have for us to help better practice our communication before we get out onto the stage or before we get onto that Zoom or WebEx call that we have to take?
Absolutely, Rashawn. I mean, it's so important what you said. My version of your incredibly amazing framework is just the best way to speak is to speak, right? It's like you got to talk.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to get better at talking, you got to learn how to talk. So how do we do this? One other thing, then we'll jump into the drills. Communication is like juggling 18 balls at the same time, Rashawn. One of those balls is smiling. One of those balls is eye contact. One of those balls is body language, hairstyle, storytelling, and the list goes on. So the question we need to figure out now is, what are the 3 easiest balls that we can juggle that can give us momentum? So let's go through what I call my easy 3s. So number 1 is the random word exercise. Pick a random word like mousetrap, like house, like brick, like a roof, and create random presentations out of thin air. Think of it like this. If you could make sense out of nonsense, Rashawn, you could make sense out of anything. And what I recommend people do, especially people who have kids, is do this with their family so that they become your accountability system. And that's exercise number 1 of 3. And then number 2 is the question drill. So the question drill is essentially this, Rashawn. We get asked questions all the time in our life. On a podcast, on a show, on TV. Actually, not really on TV. Some of us might have been on TV, not me. We're at school, at work.
I'll say if you have been, that's like subtle flex, but okay.
No, I actually haven't.
Not yet. Not yet you haven't.
But yes, not yet. There you go. It's not really cool, but yeah, sure. So we always get asked questions all the time. But a lot of us are reactive to those questions. We wait for the question to appear, and then we get caught off guard. I remember a few years ago when I started guesting on podcasts, I was garbage. I was terrible. I didn't even have a mic. I didn't know how these things went. And somebody asked me the funniest question on one of these podcasts. He said, "Where does the fear of communication come from?" And I looked at the guy and I said, "I don't know, man. Los Angeles? San Diego?" It's like, you tell me, man. I just wasn't ready, right? So I got caught off guard. So what I did after that is every day for 5 minutes, I would answer one question. One question that I thought somebody was going to ask me about communication. One question a day for 5 minutes a day keeps the doctor away. In other words, what I mean, if you do this for a year with only 5 minutes a day, you'll have answered 365 questions about your industry. You'll be bulletproof, right? And that's number 2. Finally, number 3, the final one. It's so easy that nobody does it, Rashawn. Make a list of the people that you love. Okay. Your friends, your family, clients, the person who hired you for your speaking engagement, right? And people around you. And ask yourselves this question. When was the last time we sent any of these people? Not a 20-minute, not a 20-hour, but a 20-second video message to just say, "Hey, Rashawn, really love what you're doing at the podcast. You're doing incredible work. Keep up the amazing interviews that you're doing and have yourself a wonderful week." Simple, but nobody does it. So I encourage you to do it. That's it.
That's good. I'm definitely gonna have to try out that first one, because I know when I was in high school, I was part of my speech team. I'm not wearing my speech team shirt right now, but I was part of a speech team. And one of the events at that speech team was impromptu speaking or improv rather. One of the, I forgot what it was exactly called, but I didn't take part of it. I was original oratory and humor student acting, but I had someone else who was into that one. And since I had no idea what it was, I asked him and I was like, "Hey man, how does this work? Right? How does this work?" 'Cause I mean, I have to create a speech from scratch and then recite it from memory for between 8 to 10 minutes. You literally prepare nothing and you go into a room and you speak. Like, what are you speaking on? And he said, literally, the topic they give you. And I was like, "Do you know the topic ahead of time? Like, do you know He said, "We know general ideas of what it's going to be about." Like, for example, they might get an idea like pop culture. They just know the genre is pop culture. That's it. They don't know what part of pop culture. They don't know what movies, what people, what anything. They just know pop culture. That is it. So when they get in there, they have a total of 8 minutes. They have 2 minutes to prepare a speech and then 6 minutes to give one. And that was it. I was like, man, I don't know if I could do that. I don't have the knowledge base for that, buddy. But it was very impressive when I was finished with mine to go in and see them. They would go in, they would have their note cards, of course, writing frantically and everything. And it was amazing to see that they were able to come up with a 4 to 6 minute speech in 2 minutes about something they were given literally 2 minutes ago. And I was always amazed and impressed. And I was like, wow, that's an absolute boss amount of skill. And then when you came up with the whole thing, just saying, take a random word and then do the same thing, that literally, I can see that skill, as you say right here. Like, that is exactly what they were doing. And I can guarantee you, like, I haven't done it, but practicing what you said and then seeing how those people were in those events, doing stuff like that, that is going to make you miles better than all the competition, because no matter what, you can, like you can pick whatever word, whatever topic you want. And as long as you're able to create something from that, and then my mind's going like a mile a minute right now, but like, you can take so much from just that. And then not only apply that to public speaking and apply that to public speaking engagements or speaking on the internet or anything, you can apply that even to just day-to-day conversations, because that will help you to think much, much faster on your feet. Someone tells you something that you weren't thinking about of left field, the skills that you were talking about, you're able to take that and then just say, oh, they gave me something. I've been practicing this drill for days, weeks, months, years, however long you've been practicing it for. And then say, okay, now I can throw this one right back at them. And then you seem just like a person who has all this charisma and all this charm, and you just know how to respond to anything. People call you a good communicator and all of this kind of good stuff. And it seems like that would just be a worthwhile skill just to have and just to be able to do. So if anything, I'm going to start doing that one. I'm just going to implement just one. Okay. Because if I start taking on too many, I'm going to end up not doing any of them. So I'm just going to start with the one, and I'm just going to find a random word. And I'm just going to pretty much give maybe like a 5-minute improv commercial, I guess was what I'll probably call it. And just either tell myself, I'll probably record myself. I mean, I got my phone right here, so I can just take it, record myself, and then just see how it sounds, and then just practice it day in and day out. And I'm pretty sure I'll be able to get pretty good at it after a while. So.
Oh, yeah. And to make your life easier, Rashad, it doesn't have to be 5 minutes either. I don't like rules. So it could be like 30 seconds. It could be 90 seconds. And I love that you're taking action. It's just about doing a ton of words, and you'll just get really confident with it in a very short period of time. And also, side note, you have to tell me what this speech competition is about. I need to research this. Maybe I can learn it and get a couple of techniques I can teach my clients or make videos around.
Yeah, sure. Did you want information now, or did you want some like after the call?
Yeah, sure. Or whatever.
Okay, now you're putting me on the spot with impromptu stuff now. It was a few years back, this was. So yeah, so
you can do it after.
Yeah, I guess I'll try to give you some now, and then afterwards I have you online, so I could also send you some stuff too. But in general, for you and for anybody who's listening, these speech teams were kind of like how you said. I guess they're probably, if they're the same way as what you were doing with these case competitions, they're kind of like that. Again, for my version, right, for original oratory, what would happen is, you would go, they would tell you the rules where you have 8 to 10 minutes to create a speech on whatever you want. And it would be the introduction. You'd have point 1, point 2, point 3, and then you'd have your conclusion. So mine was on it was a long time ago. I think mine was on the importance of STEM and in the role it has into the future of like how it's going to impact jobs and all kinds of things like that. So I pretty much came on and was talking about the importance of STEM and how STEM is going to be the future in terms of robotics, and how a lot of jobs are going towards the direction of engineering, like computer science. I mean, my degree in biomedical engineering, all kinds of engineers, that's what it's going to go into. And then the future of engineering, and how engineering is going to be able to, for lack of a better word, infiltrate everything, right? Because everything's going to require some kind of engineering. I mean, nowadays you have insert word and you have an engineer, software engineer, audio engineer, graphic design engineer. I don't even, there's engineers popping up every single day, right? So So for me, when I did that, it was pretty much just, like I said, I would come up with the topic of, I'm going to talk about this, and I would go out and do some research. I would go out and find different research, find different articles and publications and people essentially proving what I'm trying to say, who also have the similar kind of mindset. I would take that, and it's essentially writing like a 2-3 page paper, essentially, and then committing that to memory and then giving that kind of a presentation in front of an audience and 3 judges. And those 3 judges would give you a score, I think it was 1 to 10 or so. And they would give you a score overall, like 1 to 10, how good you did. And they would give you some pros, what you did well, like whether you spoke well. Did you remember to walk to different parts? Because you did have to do that too, so that they know what point you're on. So the intro, you'd start, you get to your intro of call to action of what you're going to be talking about. You take a step forward. Point 1, you'd walk over to the left. Point 2, you'd go to the middle. Point 3, you'd walk over to the right. And then when you get to the conclusion, you come back to the middle, right? So there's this whole thing, right? So they would judge you even on that, like how smooth was the walk, or like how fluid was it? Did you look like stiff as a board? You know, did you look nervous? How well did the words flow? Were you able to, did you enunciate your words properly, right? Did you pronounce things properly? Was the information that you were giving coherent? They would judge you on all these kind of things, and right? And I'll go and do a little bit more research on all this stuff and get some more information back to you. But just going based off of my memory, those are the kind of things that we talked about and that we were judged on. And that's pretty much how it went. So that's what I did for a couple years in high school. So I would say if you have the opportunity to, I would highly recommend that if you can join some kind of speech team, some kind of speech club, public speaking, betterment class of any kind of sort, because it's going to pay dividends in the long run, as it'll help you to get over that fear of getting in front of people and being able to give something original. And then another one that I did as well, because I know we're starting to hit up on our time limit here, was humorous duet acting. This one was a little bit quicker. This one was more just, you didn't make anything off the top of your head. You just had a script given to you, and you and a person would be as dumb as humanly possible while acting out this script. And so the one that I had with my partner at the time was one where it was 2 guys in a diner, and they saw that this really hot girl on the side, and my partner was the one who was trying to hit on her. And then I was the guy who was saying like, well, if you want to, go ahead and do it, bro. And he would always be trying to do all kinds of dumb stuff, like trying to slide the number, trying to move chairs closer to her. And everywhere she moved, he was moving around. And I'm just sitting here on my phone, twiddling my thumbs, just like he would come back in failure and be like, oh, it didn't work, dude. I'm like, told you so. Right. And we'd make it like as funny as possible. So that's what we did for a couple of years. And it was pretty fun. We definitely had a good time. And I definitely learned a lot. Definitely got over any of that fear of getting in front of an audience. And that's not to say it's completely gone, because it never really at least for me, I don't know about you, Brendan, but for me, it never goes away, right? You always have that little something before you get on stage. It just doesn't go away, but you just learn to just be like, this is just what happens. I have to do what I have to do. People are here to hear this information or to see this performance or whatever it is. And that's what they're here for. Can't let them down.
I love that, Rashawn. And thanks for sharing that, man. Really interesting circuit. It's very different from what I did in university. But in terms of the fear, though, I agree. For me, it's never left either. I honestly think that trying to remove the fear of communication is a loser's game, and I'll tell you why. Because there's always a level in which we're all fearful of something. Imagine we're having lunch, Rashawn, and Elon Musk calls me. And he goes, hey, Brendan, sorry to call you out of the blue. I saw your YouTube channel is really nice. Can you coach me tomorrow? I'll pay you $1 million. Would I my pants? Yeah. Yeah, I would. Even if I've coached a lot of successful people, I would still coach them. I'd still fly out, but I'd be shaking out my pants, probably peeing a little bit as I'm taking the flight. So yes, I don't think the goal is to remove the fear. I think it's to see fear like a boxing match. One side of the ring is the message, one side of the ring is the fear. And the goal is not for the fear to leave the ring, but rather make sure that when your fear and your message, why it's important, why you should deliver it. When you meet in the middle of that boxing match, you better make sure your message wins the match, that your message gets the knockout punch. And that's how you overcome it. Not by overcoming it, but make sure your message is a little bit more important than the fear that it comes with.
Very good analogy. I like that analogy a lot. Definitely good. And I know if Elon definitely contacted me about wanting to be on the show, I would be very, very surprised myself. Like, whoa, how did you hear about this kind of a show? You want to be on the show? Sure, come on the show. Why not? What, buddy? Sure, come on in. Come on in. We'll have a nice, great talk. Won't be like the JRE now, but we'll still have we'll definitely have a great talk. And so one more question that I have for you, since I know we are getting up on time and we have a hard stop. For people out there who, I'll be similar to me as well, who are pretty avid book readers, right? Every time you get a moment or a free time, your nose is in a book or in a Kindle or some sort. What book recommendations do you have for some people out there that they can read to be able to improve on their public speaking capabilities?
Yeah, for sure, Rashad. I would say Thirst by Scott Harrison. So Thirst by Scott Harrison. Scott's the CEO of Charity Water. It's a nonprofit. He started to help people gain access to clean water. And the reason I bring up his book is because the guy's a master storyteller. And he went from being a nightclub promoter in his 20s in New York City to raising hundreds of millions of dollars for this cause and building the largest water charity in America. His success story is amazing, and he did it primarily through communication and storytelling. He's a guy who doesn't just talk about storytelling, he applied it with a great result. And there's a great quote that I always love to share from the book. And the quote is, "The goal is not to live forever, but rather create something that will." And that always inspired me to create something like Master that I think hopefully lives forever.
That is a fantastic, fantastic quote. Definitely when I'm going through and editing this, I'm definitely going to write that down, probably put it up on my wall somewhere right there, because that is definitely something to live by. I have a lot of quotes just kind of floating around up here in my brain, but that one's going to live, as they say on the internet, that one's going to live rent free. So for sure. So Brendan, I know we're coming up on time here, so we're going to have to cut the episode here, man. But before you go, man, I always have to ask every single guest before, like, one more question. I ask them all the same kind of question before they end the show, right? So let's say somebody just woke up, right? They just went through this 37 minutes that we've been sitting here talking together, right? They just woke up. I'm talking drool on the side of the face. Like they just woke up and they're just like, I have no idea. I don't want to go back and watch this 37 minutes. Even though you should, I don't want to go back and watch these 37 minutes. Like what? Give us one piece of advice that if people just had no idea what we were talking about for this entire time, what's one piece of advice that you could give somebody that they can just walk away with and be able to just take action on it, like right now, once the episode ends?
Absolutely, Rashawn. And it's just a question. How would your life change if you're an exceptional communicator? You know, a lot of the times when I say that question, we don't take it seriously. We go, that question's cute. It's cool. But a lot of people don't actually take the time to reflect on that question. So I would encourage you to do that. Because once you find an answer to that question, for all of us, it's different. Some of us want to be great communicators to be better mothers for our children. Other people want to be great communicators to get their next promotion, impress their boss. And other people want to get better at communication to create a movement and change the world. All of us are different, but all of us have a reason inside of us as to why we want to be great communicators. So my ask for everyone who's listening to this, even the one who just woke up, is to just answer that bloody question, and it'll unlock your excitement for communication for the first time in your life.
Absolutely fantastic. Thank you for that piece of advice. Even though you've been dropping advice and knowledge bombs this entire episode, thank you for that. So before you head out of here, I want to give you the platform. Do you have any call to actions after they've listened to this episode? Now, for the people who weren't asleep the entire time, thank you. But for those people who were, what's the call to action? Where do you want people to go after this to find out more information about you? Maybe they're now intrigued and say, hey, I want to find out more about Brendan, or I want to find out more about Master Talk, or I want those free resources. You said free, F-R-E-E, that spells me right there. So if they want to go get some of those, where can they find you on these fascinating worldwide interwebs we got going on?
For sure, Rashawn. So 2 ways to keep in touch. This is a great episode, by the way. Thanks for having me. So the first one is the YouTube channel. Just go to Master Talk in one word and you'll have access to hundreds of free videos on how to communicate ideas effectively. And number 2, attend one of my free trainings. I do a free training over Zoom every 3 weeks. It's free, it's live, it's interactive, it's not some boring webinar. And I facilitate the call myself and I coach people on it. So if you want to come to that, go to rockstarcommunicator.com.
I appreciate that, because the amount of webinars that I've been to that are pre-recorded and then you can see they're pre-recorded, I'm just like, Man, if I always told myself, if I were to ever do webinars, I swear I would, if they're going to be pre-recorded, I'm going to let you know off bat that they're pre-recorded. But my preference would be to do them live, because the amount of times I was sick and tired of getting pre-recorded webinars. They sign up for my free training, my free webinar, and at the end they sell you something, which is fine. I mean, that's what happens at the end of it. I mean, they're a business at the end of the day. That's whatever. But it's just them being pre-recorded, but coming off as if it's not. I hated that. So that's why I gave you the thumbs up, because I appreciate you doing live webinars. So guys who's listening, actual live webinars. He's actually there. I have to sign up for one of those. Definitely to see how those work. You said every 3 weeks, right?
And we don't pitch at the end.
Man, you're my best friend now. You're my best friend. Love it.
That's why a lot of people come to them.
I can see why. And like I said before, there's always something to learn. So I'm definitely going to sign for one of those. And what time are they, actually, if you don't mind me asking too?
I think the next one is August 12th, 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
Okay, August 12th then.
So
Friday. I'm probably going to be at work at that time, unfortunately. But
it's okay. It's only for committed.
I'll just call a half day on work that day or something. It's all right. I'll
It's okay. You're not ready for it. Just I'm kidding. We always do it on Friday because the weekday, the last day, and it works for all the time zones. So like PST is 9 a.m. Europe, it's 5 p.m. In India as well. A lot of them from India come on in. It's like 10:30, so it works.
Gotcha. But I'll definitely make it a point to try to attend one of those for sure, even though they're always on Fridays. I don't have much going on Friday, so I'll probably see if I can attend one of those. But anyway, this isn't for me. This is for all the listeners. Thank you, Brendan, so much for coming on the show. Appreciate it. Definitely would want to have you on again, because this was a wealth of knowledge. And I know a bunch of people are going to get a vast amount of assistance from this, because public speaking is a big fear for a lot of people. And being able to have some tools and tips and being able to have all this information, be able to get better at that, absolutely fantastic. So thank you so much, Brendan, for coming on to the show. And guys, with that, I'm going to have to bring this week's episode to a close. Thank you so much for attending this week, guys. And, oh wait, guys, don't close out yet. Don't close out yet. Before you go, I mean, you see Brendan jigging over there. I have 3 quick requests for you. Number 1, subscribe to the show if you found it useful, and be on the lookout for new episodes every single week. We drop fresh content every single week, guys. Number 2, let me know what you thought about this episode. Let me know what you liked, what you didn't like. I'm always using that feedback to grow and improve the show. And lastly, follow me on social media. Also follow Brendan on social media. I'm going to leave those links in the description if you're watching on YouTube or wherever you're watching and listening. Take care of yourselves.